Here was a disease, a moral disease, with which the public was being infected, one worse than the Black Plague. And in what mighty doses this moral poison was manufactured and distributed by Jews. It was a terrible thought, but one that I couldn't avoid anymore.
There may have been a time when even parties founded on the ecclesiastical basis were a necessity. At that time, liberalism was opposed to the church, while Marxism was anti-religious. But that time is past. National Socialism neither opposes the church, nor is it anti-religious, but on the contrary, it stands on the ground of a real Christianity. The church's interests cannot fail to coincide with ours alike in our fight against the symptoms of degeneracy in the world of today, in our fight against the Bolshevist culture, against an atheistic movement, against criminality, and in our struggle for the consciousness of a community in our national life, for the conquest of hatred and disunion between the classes, for the conquest of civil war and unrest, of strife and discord. These are not anti-Christian, these are Christian principles.
Listen, there is a group that belongs to Satan. They say they are Jews, but they are liars. They are not true Jews. I will make them come before you and bow at your feet. They will know that you are the people I have loved. You followed my command to endure patiently. So I will keep you from the time of trouble that will come to the world, a time that will test everyone living on earth.
Even back then, there were always 2 or 3 groups that appeared to be fighting against each other, but in reality, were all hanging on a gold thread, and everything was adjusted to a peculiar human characteristic. That man gets tired of something he has had for a long time. He wants something new, and so 2 parties were needed. One of them rules, and the other one forms the opposition. When one party is played out, the opposition party comes to power, and the played out party now takes its turn as the opposition. After 20 years, the new party becomes played out, and the game repeats itself anew. In reality, this is certainly an ingenious mill in which the interests of a nation are ground down. As is well known, such a thing is called self-government of a people. In the process, we always find 2 main buzzwords: freedom and democracy. As a Christian, I have also a duty to my own people. And when I look on my people, I see them work and toil and labor, and at the end of the week, they have only for their wages wretchedness and misery. When I go out in the morning and
Today I head the strongest army in the world, the mightiest air force, and a proud navy. Behind me I am conscious of the sworn community of the party, which made me great and which became great through me. The enemies that I confront have been known to be our enemies for over 20 years. Alas, the road that lies ahead of me cannot be compared to the one lying behind me. The German Volk realizes the decisiveness of the hour for its existence. Under the most difficult circumstances, millions of soldiers are obediently and loyally doing their duty. Peasants, workers, German women and girls work by the sweat of their brows in the factories and offices, in the fields and in farmland to secure bread for the homeland and weapons for the front. The strong people allied to us suffer the same misery and face the same enemies. The American president and his plutocratic clique have called us a people of have-nots. That is right. And these have-nots want to live. In any event, they will not allow the owners to rob them of the little that they have to live on.
And the theatrical idiocy was being created by Jews, who formed scarcely 1% of the nation. This fact could no longer be denied. It was there, and I had to admit it. Then I began to examine the mainstream press that I used to love. The deeper I probed, the more its style seemed more repellent. Its ideas started to seem shallow and superficial. I no longer was tricked into believing it was impartial. The owners, of course, were Jews. I now understood the language.
I do not merely talk of Christianity. No, I also profess that I will never ally myself with the parties which destroy Christianity. If many wish today to take threatened Christianity under their protection, where, I would ask, was Christianity for them in these 14 years when they went armed?
2 years ago, the conspiracy of Democrats, Jews and Freemasons managed to plunge Europe into war. Arms had to decide. Since then, a struggle between the truth and the lie has been taking place. As always, this struggle will end victoriously for the truth. In other words, whatever pack of lies, British propaganda, international world Jewry, and its democratic accomplices tell, they will not change the historical fact. There is one God. This God creates nations. He gives all nations the same rights. The idea that there are two kinds of people, those with rights and those without, this capitalist hypocritical idea will be destroyed. God did not intend for a few small races to rule over 2/3 of the entire world, while their own people lack resources and other nations starve. Thereupon, Judaism began systematically to undermine our nation from within, and it found its best ally in those narrow-minded bourgeoisie who would not recognize that the era of a bourgeois world is ended and will never again return, that the epoch of unbridled economic liberalism has outlived itself and can only lead to its self-destruction, and above all, that the great tasks of our time can be mastered only under an authoritarian coordination of natural strength based on the law of same rights for all and, thence, of same duties. I didn't do that for months. I didn't drop a bomb on Paris. I asked for surrender 5 times before we attacked Warsaw. Everything was refused. I asked that the women and children be sent out of the area. Not even the parliamentarian was received. Everything was rejected.
It appears to have slipped Mr. Roosevelt's mind that Palestine is not being occupied by German troops, but by English ones. By brute force, England is curtailing Palestinian freedom and is robbing the Palestinians of their independence to the advantage.
In many of these countries, even families are divided across party lines. One says they're conservative, another calls themselves liberal, and another supports the Labour Party in England. It looks like they hold different views, but in reality, it's mostly just labels. In truth, all 3 family members meet every year and end up agreeing on what they believe. And the so-called chosen people, a powerful group found everywhere, hold a great deal of influence. They help